Have you ever wondered what it's really like to be a modern-day monarch? Picture living in a world where you don't need a passport to travel. Your face is on the country's currency, and you hold titles and powers that date back centuries. It sounds like the stuff of fairy tales, but for King Charles III, this is everyday life. The British monarchy is filled with centuries-old customs, legal quirks, and surprising perks that you won't believe are still in place. Today, we're diving into 20 exclusive privileges that only King Charles III can enjoy. Let's jump right in. No passport needed. One of the best-known perks of the British monarch is traveling without a passport. Since every UK passport is technically issued in the monarch's name, it would be rather odd for the king to issue one to himself. This tradition means King Charles III can freely hop on a plane and cross borders without going through the passport application process that the rest of us dread. Interestingly, other members of the royal family, like Prince William, do need passports, because the lack of passport privilege is specific only to the reigning monarch. This custom occasionally raises eyebrows, especially in our security-conscious world, but so far, it has managed to stand the test of time. Driving without a license. Closely related to the passport perk is the king's right to drive without a license. In the UK, driving licenses are also technically issued in the monarch's name, so the king doesn't need a piece of paper authorizing his own approval. Fans of the late Queen Elizabeth II will remember that she famously continued to drive into her 90s and never carried a license. This is certainly convenient if King Charles III ever wants to spontaneously take a spin around the royal estates. Of course, it does raise questions about accountability and public safety. But historically, the monarch tends to have impeccable driving lessons. Who wants to be the one who taught the king? Supreme Governorship of the Church of England. The monarch has been the supreme governor of the Church of England ever since King Henry VIII broke away from the Catholic Church in the 16th century. This means King Charles III plays a ceremonial and influential role in the Church's affairs. While he doesn't dictate theological decisions, there are bishops and archbishops for that. He does appoint high-ranking church officials on the advice of the Prime Minister. This power is often questioned by those who think church and state should be completely separate. Nonetheless, it remains an integral piece of the Crown's authority in the UK. Ownership of swans. Yes, you heard that right. The king technically owns all unmarked mute swans in open water in England and Wales. This rule dates back to the 12th century, when swans were prized as a delicacy for banquets. Over time, it evolved into a legal quirk signifying regal status. Once a year, there's even a ceremony along the River Thames called swan upping, where the swans are counted, examined for health, and tagged. It's more about conservation than cuisine nowadays, but the tradition is alive and well. The king's swan ownership never fails to fascinate tourists and bird lovers alike. Ownership of dolphins and whales. As if owning all the unmarked swans wasn't enough, the monarch also has a claim on fishes royal, which traditionally included dolphins, whales, sturgeons, and porpoises in British waters. It's a centuries-old law that states these creatures become property of the king if caught within 3 miles of the shores. While this might sound like an overreach in modern times, it's mostly a ceremonial holdover that rarely comes into play. Environmentalists have occasionally pointed out that this could theoretically be leveraged to protect marine life, though it's generally left as an archaic relic. Exemption from Freedom of Information requests. While the British government is subject to the Freedom of Information Act, which allows citizens to request certain documents and data, the royal household is largely exempt. This means King Charles III and his representatives can keep certain correspondence and financial information under wraps. Critics argue this hinders transparency, especially when taxpayer money supports aspects of the monarchy. Royalists argue that the king's role is symbolic, and he needs this confidentiality to carry out duties without political interference. Whatever your stance, it underscores how the monarchy sits outside the everyday systems of accountability. Power to appoint the Prime Minister. The king technically wields the royal prerogative, which includes the appointment of the Prime Minister. However, This isn't a free-for-all. By modern convention, the monarch appoints the leader of whichever party holds the majority in the House of Commons. Could the king choose someone else? Theoretically, yes. But practically, it would spark a constitutional crisis like no other. Nevertheless, the pomp and circumstance remains in place. After a general election, the new prime minister travels to Buckingham Palace to be formally invited by the king to form a government. It's a privilege rooted in tradition, reminding everyone that, constitutionally, ultimate power flows from the crown, royal assent, and legislative power. Once Parliament passes a bill, it doesn't become law until the monarch grants royal assent. Historically, kings and queens had real power to withhold assent. Today, it's extremely unlikely that King Charles III would refuse a bill, as the last monarch to do so was Queen Anne back in 1707. Still, the procedure remains, and it underscores a lingering power that, while not exercised, is definitely still on the books. Some wonder whether there could ever be a scenario in which the king might challenge Parliament. Under the modern constitution, that would likely cause a massive uproar, but you never say never in British politics. Immunity from civil or criminal prosecution. King Charles III cannot be arrested or sued in his personal capacity, thanks to sovereign immunity. This doesn't mean he can break the law at will. In practice, it's expected that the monarch will adhere to the law very closely. But it does mean that if the king were ever accused of an offense, normal legal pathways would not apply. This legal protection is often criticized, especially by Republicans who believe no one should be above the law. Yet, in a constitutional monarchy, the crown technically embodies the legal system, making it a complex subject. Financial confidentiality. Royal finances, particularly income from the Duchy of Lancaster, which provides the sovereign with a private income, are often shielded from public scrutiny. While the UK Treasury does publish some details, critics argue this secrecy is outdated. King Charles III's financial arrangements are more transparent than they were decades ago, partly due to public pressure and growing expectations of accountability. But there's still a thick layer of confidentiality that most private citizens could only dream of, and it's one reason that public discussions about the monarchy's wealth can be rife with speculation. Bestowing honors and knighthoods. The king plays a central role in Britain's honors system, awarding knighthoods, damehoods, OBEs, MBEs, and other titles to recognize outstanding contributions in various fields. These accolades can dramatically change the lives of recipients, and the monarchy's role in bestowing them is centuries old. Many see it as a symbol of national pride and continuity. Critics say it's outdated patronage, pointing out that it ties achievements to royal favor. There's also talk about modernizing the system, but for now, this remains one of the most public-facing privileges King Charles III exercises. Control over royal warrant. Have you ever seen a product proudly labeled, "by royal appointment"? That's due to a royal warrant, a mark of recognition given to companies who supply goods or services to the royal household. The monarch, along with a few other royals, decides who gets one. It's a coveted endorsement because it can skyrocket a company's reputation and business. While Prince William and other high-ranking royals can also issue warrants, King Charles III's warrant is naturally the most prestigious. Brand managers dream of that seal of approval, yet it can be withdrawn if the company no longer meets the exacting royal standards. Sovereign's role in declaring war. While Parliament holds the real power to commit the nation to war, the king still has the ceremonial authority to declare war and peace, another aspect of the royal prerogative. In today's democracy, the Prime Minister and Parliament make the actual decisions. But, historically, kings would rally armies and fight for territory. This is a potent reminder of how the monarchy evolved from the days when the sovereign was the unquestioned commander-in-chief. Now, King Charles III may sign declarations on advice of the government, but the symbolism is powerful. War and peace are still, in name, decisions of the Crown. Command of the Armed Forces. Similarly, the British Armed Forces swear allegiance to the King, who is their commander-in-chief. He doesn't attend day-to-day military briefings or plan strategies, but there's a deep-rooted ceremonial connection between the crown and the military. For soldiers, sailors, and Air Force personnel, pledging loyalty to the king is a powerful tradition. This also feeds into the awarding of military honors and the king's role in key ceremonies, like the Remembrance Day service. Beyond ceremony, the monarchy's relationship with the military remains a symbol of national unity, though some debate whether this close bond should be re-evaluated in the modern era. Custodian of the Royal Collection. King Charles III is the custodian of one of the largest art collections on the planet, the Royal Collection. This includes priceless paintings, porcelain, furniture, and jewelry, some of which dates back centuries. While these treasures are owned by the crown in trust, meaning they can't be sold for personal profit, the king ultimately decides how the collection is displayed and loaned. This power means he can shape the way the public engages with history through traveling exhibitions or new museum openings. It's an incredible cultural privilege, but it's also a responsibility to preserve a legacy that belongs to the nation, the Crown Estate, and the Duchy of Lancaster. Although King Charles III doesn't personally own the Crown Estate, it generates substantial income for the government, and in turn, the sovereign grant is funded from a portion of its profits to support royal duties. The Duchy of Lancaster, on the other hand, does provide a private income stream to the monarch. This is no small estate. It covers a wide range of land and investments. Critics argue that the monarchy should be financially independent or fully funded by the government, rather than this patchwork. Nonetheless, these ancient arrangements remain in place, granting the king a unique financial position that stands apart from ordinary taxation systems. Exemptions from taxes. Although the Queen started voluntarily paying income tax in 1993, and King Charles III is expected to do likewise, the monarch remains technically exempt from taxation. This was a major controversy for years, especially as the monarchy's wealth often felt shrouded in mystery. Nowadays, paying taxes is seen as crucial for maintaining public support, and the king is known to pay a voluntary amount. Still, it's a privilege that he could theoretically forgo if he wanted. There is no legal requirement that compels the reigning monarch to pay taxes, underscoring the crown's exceptional status under the law. Opening of Parliament in person. When it's time for the state opening of Parliament, King Charles III arrives in grand style, wearing the imperial state crown and delivering a speech outlining the government's agenda. This ceremonial event is loaded with tradition, from the searching of the cellars, a reference to the gunpowder plot, to the wearing of robes. It's a visible reminder of the monarchy's role at the heart of British governance. Some people love it for the sense of continuity and spectacle, while others argue it's a reminder that Britain hasn't fully shaken off feudal legacies. Whichever side you're on, it's an undeniably dramatic sight that underscores the king's unique position. Hosting state banquets and foreign leaders. The king's role as head of state means he gets to host lavish banquets for visiting presidents and dignitaries. Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, and other royal residences are the stage for these diplomatic events, often featuring ceremonial welcomes, carriage processions, and glamorous white-tie dinners. This hospitality can help foster better relationships between the UK and other nations. While government ministers handle the policy details, these regal receptions add a touch of grandeur that political summits rarely match. Critics, however, see them as expensive spectacles. Supporters argue that they showcase British culture and soft power on the global stage. National icon with global influence. Finally, perhaps the broadest privilege of all, King Charles III is a living symbol of the United Kingdom itself. His presence on currency, stamps, and national events gives him a platform like no other. He can spotlight charitable causes, humanitarian crises, and environmental concerns. Over time, Charles has been notably vocal about climate change, organic farming, and heritage conservation, sometimes stirring debates about how outspoken a constitutional monarch should be. While there are limitations on his political expressions, His global influence is undeniable. In a world that's constantly changing, the monarchy's platform can still sway public opinion, ignite international media coverage, and direct attention to otherwise overlooked issues. And there you have it, 20 exclusive privileges that come with being King Charles III. From traveling without a passport to appointing the Prime Minister, each of these rights is a window into how the British monarchy evolved across centuries of history. Some make daily life more convenient, while others carry weighty constitutional significance. Controversies abound over transparency, accountability, and modern relevance, and it's worth asking how these privileges might change in the future. Could Prince William inherit precisely the same set of perks, or will reforms catch up with centuries-old traditions? What do you think about these privileges? Which one surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into royal customs, be sure to subscribe for more fascinating explorations of British history and modern monarchy. We'll see you next time.